All right. So thank you to those of us who could join today for this social justice panel. I'm excited to have a few people from campus who are involved in some different social justice initiatives that support diversity and inclusion. So we have Dominic Martinez here, who is the Assistant Vice Chancellor for the Office of Inclusion and Outreach and Undocumented Student Services. I have worked with him a lot through my work in Women in STEM, and he has been very supportive of our group as well as others on campus. So he does a lot of amazing work. We have Dr. Adela Cota-Gomez, who is Associate Professor in Pulmonary and Critical Care. She is also the Assistant Director of Education Administration at the Colorado Cancer Center. And I know her because she was a near peer mentor in this Building Up program to help build a diverse biomedical workforce. And so I know she's also involved in supporting different diversity initiatives through different avenues and activities she's involved in. We have Stephen Burton, who is the graduate assistant at the LGBTQ plus hub resource coordinator. And so it's a fairly new resource that we have on our campus. And so we're really excited to have it as a resource and hear more about the work that they're doing there from Stephen. And then finally, we have Julie Cooper, who is the Endowed Chair in the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Genetics. So that's also the department I'm in. And she helped start diversity, equity, and anti-racism initiative in our department, which has grown and done a bunch of different activities, both within the department to kind of support inclusion, as well as outreach and various diversity events to try to recruit diverse individuals into our department. So yeah, thank you all for coming here today. I figured we can maybe ask some questions, figure out a little bit more about what you do and why you do it. I thought kind of maybe a good starter question would be like, why are you passionate about supporting diversity, and what really drives you to do these different activities to, support it? Whoever wants to start. I know it's kind of a deep question, so.
And I don't mind starting, Allison. So again, my name is Adela Cota-Gomez, and I have been here associated with the university for a very long time. I actually in the 90s I started, and one of the reasons that after, I graduated, got my PhD and was working in the field that I thought that I needed to work in this is because I thought about my path when I was in college, and the fact that I thought that it was basically a miracle that I ended up where it was just all by chance. It all happened by chance that I ended up where I ended up. And that's not a good way to get here. It's so important that we start to create ways, purposeful ways and programs to inform students that this is an option. When I was in biology, a biology college major, nobody really told me about this. I thought I liked biology as a discipline, and it was interesting, but I didn't know what I was going to do with my life in terms of a career. Like what can you be when you have a biology degree? And so I had to go seek it out. I went to my counselor and I said, okay, so I'm going to graduate in 2 years. What do I do next? And I didn't think that was a good way, because not everybody has that initiative, and we shouldn't be relying on the students to have to go ask. We should be providing the information. And so I got involved when I was a postdoc, actually, in just really creating programs and getting out there, doing the community outreach and getting out there and just giving the students the information. And then as I started, really my passion is education and training. I like to work with students and again, tell them these are viable paths for you, and then help them do the steps that it takes to get there, because I didn't have that support either. I didn't, I just did it all like by feel, right? Like, okay, maybe now I should try this. And maybe I, for example, thought I wanted to go to med school. And so I went and worked in a doctor's office, and then I found out I didn't like it. Okay, well, what else do I do? And I was just trying, doing it all on my own. And so for that reason, I got into it. I thought, we have to be doing a better job of actually going out there, reaching out, giving the students the information and give them the tools to get there, and preparing them for these things. And so that's why I got into it. And now, that's what I do almost all the time. I mean, that's how I worked with you, Allison, and just any program that I can engage with that has those same goals of, recruiting students, informing students from diverse communities that this is a viable path. You can do it. You're not going to be an outsider. There's a lot of people like you here. You're going to have a support network. You're going to have a lot of examples of people just like you that made it. And so that's why I'm doing what I do.
Thank you so much for the work that you do. Helps a lot of students. Go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, I could kind of follow up with what Dr. Cota-Gomez kind of had shared about just that there wasn't a lot of guidance for me either. And so as a first generation student, like neither of my parents had graduated from high school. And so kind of just trying to navigate the system was just daunting itself. And so I kind of saw it as, this is my opportunity to help others from my community. And my initial goal was to be a teacher, to go back to my community, to go back to Wyoming and teach. And I ended up doing that. I ended up going back to my high school and teaching at the high school that I graduated from, and really working with the diverse students there and helping them with that process. But then I kind of wanted that a larger passion. I wanted something bigger to be able to say, like I'm touching more lives, and how could I do it? And so I sought out jobs at universities and really looking at how can I develop programs that could help students that were kind of in the same place that I was, where there were significant adults in their lives who've told them that they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, or that they're never going to accomplish this. And that's what I hear from a lot of our diverse students, our first generation students, our underrepresented students, so often, is that, there's teachers, there's faculty, there's sometimes even parents who will tell them, there's no way you could really succeed. And so really looking off of how can I help build, how can I bridge that gap? And so that's the work that I've been really working in. And the work I do is really looking at how we develop pipeline programs that are seamless, all the way from K-12 through undergraduate into professional school, and then beyond. Like how can we think about giving back? What's the importance of giving back, and I think Dr. Cota-Gomez is just a prime example. Like I met her 18 years ago, and I'm just so blown away by the support she provides to so many young students out there, and young people, that she's an inspiration. She's an inspiration for me. I know Dr. Flores was an inspiration for me. So like just that idea of giving back constantly is something that has inspired me.
So I guess I can say a little, or Julie, do you want to go?
No, okay. Just to say, I think that what you guys have said and done is amazing. I'm really here to learn, and being a scientist for, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 decades, it's been it's so glaring, the paucity of underrepresented minority researchers. And when I've worked over the years in various capacities with members of the underrepresented minority communities, one of the things that I've seen is that there isn't, as you say, there isn't, maybe even in general, there isn't in our cultures a lot of science as a doing research and having biological discoveries and stuff is something that isn't widely considered to be a possible career. And when people think about it, they think about an old white man with gray hair or something. And I think that's a real problem, but there's so many problems. And I think science it's a very diverse place in a way. One of the things that we know as scientists is we get to work with people from all over the world. We travel all over the world. Our labs are full of different kinds of people, but yet we still don't reflect our local communities. And I think there's so many levels at which to change this. And I know some of you have been working on this on campus for many years. I only arrived at the beginning of the pandemic in the department. So I haven't been around very long, but certainly we need to change we have to make the department really welcoming. We want to ensure that everybody feels like they belong in our department. And that involves like the way that everybody interacts with each other. And we need to recruit people at all levels and a lot of outreach. I mean, it really has to start with kids in elementary school even. I mean, everybody's a biologist, we all have bodies and we live in the world. And, so people think that science is either boring or difficult, and it isn't. And so, yeah, I want to know how we can coordinate throughout the whole campus and really have a bigger impact. There are so many ways in which we can do things on our own, but so many ways in which it would be so much more efficient to do things campus wide.
And I really liked what you said, Dr. Cooper, in regards to, like that everyone's a biologist.
Yeah.
And that there's so many opportunities, but I think, and that, this idea of how can we recruit, how can we engage and expose. I think though, as I've been working in higher education now for 25 years or so, I see education being a barrier. We've really set up as like if you look at it from a social justice approach, institutionally education was set up for the few and the many were left out. And that's still in some cases still something that still occurs at a lot of our school districts, the K-12 areas. Like I think about even my kids, like I have the privilege to have a good job. I have the privilege to have a partner who has a good job. And so we live in a great neighborhood and our kids get to go to good schools. And these schools have like STEM programs and maker spaces and all these robotic spaces and all these, but then I go down to a town like a couple schools, like maybe 10 miles down, and these schools don't have anything. And I think, I think the one thing that higher education needs to do is really push policies to make these changes, to say there needs to be some equitable distribution of funding when it comes to K-12. Because when these students that are coming from these less prepared schools are going to college, they're being bombarded with these courses that they're not really ready for, and that's where we're losing them. We're losing them there at that level, and that's where I see a lot of our students. We're losing them in the biologies, we're losing them in calculus, we're losing them in chemistry, and I think if we were able to impact and make those changes at the K-12 level, I think we'd be able to build a critical mass.
So are you saying that it's one thing for us to have outreach programs where we go into schools and do things with some of the local schools, but really what we need is political change, and we need to be influencing how money is spent more globally, sort of?
And I think both. I think there needs to be both.
I agree. You know, on the policy level, I think change takes a lot more time. And hopefully, I think there is momentum in, you know, some of these social justice changes that are starting now. But like, as you know, one person, it's hard to really affect policy, I think. So, you know, what programs can we do at our level to help expose the students, but also how can we change the education system so that they're already exposed and getting the quality education that other communities are. Multi-pronged approach, I guess. So yeah, go ahead, Stephen, if you want to talk a little bit about, you know,
just
made you get involved at the LGBTQ plus hub.
Yeah, I think not just with the LGBTQ plus community, but just any kind of underserved community. All of that kind of started from both my own lived experiences, but also listening to other people's lived experiences and studying that as well. I'm originally from Mississippi, so and I have a background in biological medical science, and then recently got my master's in public health with a community health education concentration. And with that, that's more so of being able to go into communities to really listen and understand. And that to me is kind of the driving factor behind me wanting to do this particular type of work. But I've definitely seen a lot of, just personally growing up, but also just in the communities, of lack of resources, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community. And a lot of people just not knowing how to even interact or work with this community and actively working against this community. So, and there's multiple ways I could look into that, but I think, yeah, just seeing more so of that lived experiences of individuals where the resources are being kind of held back from them. And it's kind of like barriers, as Dr. Martinez was pointing out, that there are multiple factors that can, be a barrier to someone getting to places that they would, we would hopefully all like to ideally get to. But yeah, just a short, quick, that's kind of my driving reason. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you all for sharing your stories and backgrounds. And if anyone in the audience does have any questions, feel free to chime in and ask your question. So one thing I was going to ask is, as postdocs, how do you think we can maybe get involved in some of these initiatives or help support diversity at our level? We're kind of at this in-between place with like in-between level of power, I would say. But yeah, do you have any advice for like us as postdocs of how we can help, fight for diversity and uplift our, different members of our community, I guess?
I'll say something. I didn't think about it for very long, but I always I always try to protect postdocs because I think that it's a really dangerous thing to try to engage or recruit postdocs into doing all of these extra things when they're at a stage of their career when they really have to focus so much on their productivity, in terms of their research and their academic activities, so that you can make it up to the next level of the career ladder. And it's really, so I worry sometimes. I recruit postdocs all the time for, to help with our programs, to help review applications, to help judge presentations and things like that. And so, but I also, I also worry sometimes, okay, I don't want to be a burden. I know everybody wants, wants to help and wants to get involved, but at the same time, you have to be careful how much you do. So with that said, I think what I think is most important for postdocs that they can do without, without harming themselves too much in terms of their productivity is just educate yourself. It's sort of like, I'm sure Sonia, I didn't hear Sonia's talk, but I'm sure, she's a lot of what she says is, look, just be aware of your own, of your own biases, of just yourself, and then change that, right? And then be aware of others. First, be aware of yourself, and then be aware of others. So, I think, I don't know, Allison, it seemed like you were sharing something at the end when I logged in about a lesson that you've learned about yourself. And I have had, many lessons, multiple lessons where I have learned something about myself that is like, it was surprising to me. It was even embarrassing to me to have learned that about myself, and so, and it was humbling. And so, but that's okay, because you are going to be part of the community of researchers and scientists that are then going to be teaching the others behind you. And so if you take the time right now as a postdoc to be extra culturally sensitive, to learn how to do that, to learn how to, for example, learn cultural mentoring, right? Culturally sensitive mentoring. You can then put that into practice for yourself right now. You can then say to your mentor, develop skills and techniques for how to address when a mentor, because I'll tell you, I didn't have the most culturally sensitive mentors coming up in my life. And so I didn't necessarily ever feel comfortable going to them and saying, hey, what you just said was really offensive. And I couldn't even say that I might have even been able to known and use the right language for that, because in the 90s and 80s, these things just didn't get talked about. And so I wouldn't have been able to say to my PhD mentor, what you just said was a microaggression, because I didn't know the term microaggression, but I knew it was insulting. I knew that I felt bad when he said it to me, and I wouldn't have been able to do that. And so for you at this stage to start developing those skills of if it happens to you, how do you address it? How do you at the moment tell the person, and then maybe, like Sonia was saying, educate them. And then you will, by just by doing it yourself, you'll be learning how not to treat other people. And so when you are a mentor yourself, when you go and set up your labs and have grad students, you're not going to do it, right? Because you're already culturally sensitive about it, and you have learned skills to deal with it. So I think at the stage of postdocs, I don't want to discourage postdocs from getting involved in initiatives. I think you should, and when you can, but at the same time, be careful with your time and don't overcommit to other things that can distract you from the number one goal, which is, to, of course, work on developing your own professional careers, and then engage in some things that you think are going to kind of give you a big value for your time. But I think the most important thing, and I think this is for anybody, but at the postdoc level, I would say it's a good time to do that, to just learn how the skills and learn how to how to do, all these things in ways that are gonna not offend people that, I don't know. I mean, that's what I would say, because there's of all the things, people reach out to you all the time. Hey, can you, like the other day we had some students coming to visit the campus, and we invited grad students. Hey, can you guys help us come, do tours? The grad students, you guys get invited to all these things. You don't have to go seek them out very much. They come to you, right? And it's up to you to just pick and choose the ones that for your dreams and desires are going to be the most valuable, right? And so do some, but at the same time, don't be protective of your time and of your activities, because I think you can get into trouble if you try to do too much. So that's what I'll say about that.
I think what you said was excellent. I agree with all of that. I guess one other thing I'd add is that I think, like for our department, we're going to be recruiting some new faculty. And one of the first thing we're going to look at as we review applications is the diversity statement. We want to make that a meaningful exercise. And so I think your work, what a postdoc does to develop their philosophy, to be involved if they have time. And I totally agree that if they take so much time that they can't do their work, it's not productive. But at the same time, all of us lead multi-dimensional lives. And I think part of what has kept some groups out of science is the notion that it's not compatible with a multi-dimensional life. And so I think to follow your passions, whatever they are, your life is now, and it always is now. And it's not in 10 years once you have a lab of your own. But I think that there will be an opportunity for you, hopefully, to sort of share that with search committees and stuff. It won't just be, your efforts. That's something that I think people in departments that are trying to, be sure that they're building an inclusive culture, that any work you do on this is going to be included in their evaluation of you as an applicant for having an independent lab, if that's the sort of thing that you're interested in.
I think that's a great point of follow your passions. If there's, a cause or something that you're passionate about, go for it.
and that time won't be invisible anymore. I think, in the last few years, you wouldn't have had any kind of way to share that in a job application. But I think that's becoming, in many places, the kind of first round of review is of the diversity philosophy, so that we don't recruit people who aren't going to be real participants in this, in building an inclusive culture. So I think that's changing.
Point. I totally agree. I'm looking at starting to look at faculty positions now, but every advertisement I've seen has a diversity statement now, pretty much. So I think, that is a good point, that is something that is maybe changing a little bit, and that people are becoming kind of more conscious of these issues. Stephen, go ahead.
And I really like what Dr. Cota-Gomez mentioned as well, is that being able to check your biases, definitely having that self-reflection of oneself, not expecting someone to kind of reach out to you to start doing that, take that initiative. But I definitely understand what the time constraints that a lot of individuals might have. So definitely being more strategic with that. But to me, it all kind of boils down to putting yourself out there for the exposure, to really, if you can, even if it's like picking up a book, watching a movie, watching a TV show, having a conversation with someone, like doing little steps, those will add up. But never get to a place where you kind of think that you know it all and you kind of stop. Always be willing to learn more. But yeah, to me, it just kind of goes down to that being exposed to these different communities and being willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because I feel like, to me, that's one of my favorite phrases to use, is being able, that's where you start learning. It's when you're like, oh, I don't know this, but I'm willing to learn, if you can make the time to do so. But yeah.
That's a great point. And I'll just put a link in the chat, but the Harvard implicit bias test, I hadn't really done them before, but Sonia kind of requested we do them before her workshop, a couple of them. But I think like taking tests like these are a great way to just become more aware of like what are our unconscious biases. Yeah, I think that, is a great point to just keep learning and keep, becoming aware of different communities and the struggles that they do face is a important thing to do. I guess I'll make a point that, I have gotten very involved in diversity initiatives because it's been stuff that I'm passionate about. But for me, like, research always has kind of its ups and downs. And some days I'm not super motivated to come into lab when like my experiment just failed and, have to re-strategize and make a new plan. So for me, like getting involved in different like social justice initiatives has actually helped me like have more motivation in general to like do my job. It's like, I feel like I'm helping others. So I think that actually helps provide me with even more motivation to like do my research along with this other work that I'm involved with. So, if like there's some initiative or cause that you're passionate about, it's feasible to do it.
And I always tell people though, like you could turn your work, any work, into social justice work. Like the work that you're doing in the lab, the work that you might be doing, like the type of research that you might be doing, it's eventually going to impact communities, and it could change these communities for the betterment. And so like being able to look at it from a positive approach and be like, this work I'm doing and all the passion I have for this is really social justice. This is about health disparities. This is about impacting communities, underserved communities, underrepresented communities. Like, and so I'm always telling a lot of our researchers, a lot of our healthcare providers, like any of that work that you're doing is really impactful. And so just really think of it from that positive approach. Like I don't have to be out there marching. I don't have to be out there making all these policy changes, but what I can be doing is really controlling what I'm doing within my own little space in the lab, are who I'm inviting in to be my lab assistants or my PRAs, my lab techs. Those are things that really add to changing the culture.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I know like even some of the funding agencies now are creating kind of these opportunities for diverse individuals. Like there's a program from the NSF where if you have an NSF grant, you can apply for supplemental funding for like a diverse postbac for a year, for up to a year. And so, I think being aware, I guess, of programs like that. I'm working with a student from an underrepresented background over the summer, and I was like, I need to find, funding for this student. And I, just searched for funding opportunities. I was able to find the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. And, thanks, maybe my connection with Dominic helped, but, I was able to secure funding for my student to come and work in the lab for the summer. So I think being aware of, funding that's available for diverse people and also recruiting these people into these opportunities is another great way of kind of supporting that. Any questions from the audience? I'm happy to keep asking questions. Okay, so I guess one question is, maybe can you tell us a little bit about the different diversity initiatives that you're involved in and what they do, and anything like that? Like what your office does or what the DEAR in BMG does?
Yeah, I could go ahead and start. My office is the Office of Inclusion and Outreach. We're now under the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement, which is overseen by the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Regina Richards, and we report directly up through her. Our office is now serving as kind of serving as a hub for pipeline programs to support pipeline programs, not controlling all the pipeline programs, but we're hoping to eventually filter and support all the pipeline programs on our campus and provide additional resources and help with data collection, with supplemental funding, with a lot of the logistical, the risk management components of it. Our office does a lot of the pipeline programs ourselves. We have a few pipeline programs that we oversee too. And pipeline are like some of the outreach programs from K-12, undergraduate programs. And then we also do a lot of trainings for faculty, staff, and students around implicit biases, microaggressions. So our office will do that, work closely with the different faculty and staff in those areas. Like I just done a series with the CCTSI this past semester, a series of 4 different presentations where we worked on microaggressions all the way to being an active ally, providing resources through there. And then we also are working on search advocacy trainings, how to help with searches and the hiring process of diverse candidates onto our campus, and not only how to recruit, but how to retain these diverse candidates on our campus. Because I think we do an okay job recruiting, but not an okay job retaining. So if we could really look at some of the best practices nationally and locally, we could kind of figure out some of those approaches. So doing that, and then I work with our undocumented student populations, not just on the Anschutz, but on the CU Denver campus, on how we could look at policies and practices across there, and work with faculty and staff on how to support undocumented students on our campuses and develop culturally relevant curriculum.
And you also help, work with different groups that support diversity. I know, I've worked with Dominic with our Women in STEM program, so we're very grateful to their office. They have given us funding over the years for our group and our program. So I know that's been very beneficial. And we also used to have a whole kind of diversity community of our group leaders that would get together and just talk about the work we're doing. So I think that was also a nice space to discuss our initiatives with like-minded people who are also supporting diversity in different ways. So
Yeah, I think COVID put a stop at a lot of stuff, but we'll get back there.
We'll pick it back up, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I work within Dr. Regina Richards' office. Also work with Dr. Martinez as a LGBTQ plus hub leader. And with that, as Allison mentioned earlier, it is a new program on campus that's really focused on centralizing a lot of the resources and services we have or don't have for the LGBTQ plus community on the Anschutz campus. And with that, we have advisory committees that's open for faculty, students, and staff. A wide range of anyone could be part of that. Also for community members as well. With that, we have education and advocacy, which is really focused on providing free trainings to individuals, but also departments and schools if they would request. We also have a peer-to-peer coaching program as well for students that are going through their programs, or for also staff that would like to have support as well. And then we also have research. That's a research committee that's really looking into LGBTQ plus research on campus and trying to centralize that, because a lot of different departments have like kind of things going on, but not a lot of people know how to get involved or get connected. And so we're trying to centralize a lot of that work. We do have the community events if individuals would like to do fun activities on campus, but also off campus. So we do a lot of partnerships with organizations on campus and off campus. So if you want to work with like the Center on Colfax, we can help set that up as well. We do have some events coming up for like August, like the Aurora Pride, a lot of kind of pride events. But it's more so just really connecting individuals to allow them to learn more about the community, but also let them know that they're not isolated or alone on campus. But yeah, so it's pretty much anything LGBTQ plus related. We focus on it.
And then I have been, running my own lab, doing research here in the pulmonary division, but all along, like I said, since I was a postdoc myself, I wanted to get involved in programs, especially that, again, give resources to students and help them come up into the field and into research. And so, but with time, I have just kind of increased more and more sort of how much I'm involved with that stuff. So, when I was a postdoc, I was doing sort of what you guys do in terms of assisting the programs with whatever assistance that they needed from postdoc. So for example, I would be like the summer program social director, so I would just make sure that the students coming in from out of town would go and have a fun time in Colorado so that they could, just have a good experience in terms of the campus and the community here at the university. And then gradually just took on more and more responsibilities within the program until I became the actual program manager. And then from there, just, sought out ways to create even more programs. So the original program I got involved in is the GEMS program, which is a summer undergraduate program for college students that comes to, students come here for 10 weeks in the summer and do a research project. But then, I've also worked again with like the program that Allison mentioned, which is called the Building Up program, which is actually for postdocs and sort of, again, helping postdocs to kind of build a community where they support one another and where they together discover resources that are essential to them as they're training. And so that was one example of a program. Another one is the Pride program, which maybe Sonia mentioned to you, also is for junior faculty. Again, helping with resources and skill development and just a lot of these programs have that big component of community, right? Of making sure that people feel like they're part of a community, making sure that people understand that they're not alone. They're not the only ones that are having these feelings, that they're not the only ones with the imposter syndrome, and that they can be each other's resources. And so that's, that's the Pride program is also that for junior faculty. In the Cancer Center, in my new role in the Cancer Center, it's really exciting because it's almost what Dominic described in terms of, just creating pipeline programs for the entire spectrum of training from K to 12 all the way to junior faculty level. And so that's exciting to me because I always thought that it's really important that we support people all the way through, not just at one stage, because then what happens at the next stage when they don't have the support and they don't have anyone to turn to. So that's what's exciting about my role in the Cancer Center, is that we're creating pipeline programs that are going to carry people all the way through. And so, for me, it's a lot. It's mostly doing work that is giving students and trainees at all stages just resources and skills and support. So that's what I do.
I guess what we're trying to do in our department is just a sort of I suppose, a smaller scale department level version of some of those things. So we have a diversity, equity, and anti-racism committee with 4 subcommittees. One is a recruitment one, to think of how we can recruit a more diverse community. So we've had things like we're having seminars this summer from postdocs and students who are members of underrepresented minority groups, just to let them know, raise their awareness that this place exists and is a place they might want to think about for their futures, and just give them some exposure. They've been terrific seminars so far, and we have partnered with Howard University in DC and have some summer students from there, so undergraduates spending the summer in our department, and also from Metro State University. So we have about, 15 students spending the summer in the department doing summer internships, and we hope to expand those programs. And then, as I said, we're starting a faculty recruitment. We have a couple open positions and are trying to figure out how we can increase our chances. And so I'm glad to hear about some of the resources on campus, Dominic, for doing that effectively. So that's the recruitment. Then we have a sort of a seminars and training subcommittee. So we're having, we worked with CSC, Creative Strategies for Change, to have workshops for faculty members to work on biases. And we have other kind of training sessions about things like different mental health. And so we want to have more bystander training and just ways for people to increase their awareness of their biases and how to become better kind of citizens in this community. Then we have an internal work committee that I think is really important. If we recruit people, we have to provide an inclusive community when they arrive. And so we're doing things like, we had this is all during the pandemic mainly, we had these kind of informal happy hours that for people to get to know each other kind of randomly in the department. And some of them had discussion points like a paper on a diversity issue that people would have read and would chat about. And we're starting this, what is it called? Random acts of coffee kindness, just to randomly pair people in the department who don't know each other and who might want to, who might become advocates for each other, just to have coffee with somebody that's in another lab that's on a different floor that you've never met. And so things just to improve the atmosphere of inclusivity in the department and the chances for people to have an advocate and feel comfortable coming to them if they feel any sort of microaggression. And then finally, the outreach is something that's very close to our hearts, but we haven't been able to do a lot of that because of the pandemic. People have participated in the Think Like a Scientist program, and we'd like to go out to a lot of people are interested in going out to local schools that don't have STEM programs. We were surprised to find that as Dominic mentioned, many of them really don't have science education particularly, and ways to make that fun and include more kids. But I guess I think we need to be liaising with all of you and learning about, it sounds like there's a lot of experience on campus and we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. But we really want to contribute and certainly make this campus one that's really diverse and inclusive. Yeah, that should be a top priority, and it's the right thing and it helps everybody.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely grateful for all the work you all do. Were you going to say something, Dominic?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just going to ask Dr. Cooper and Dr. Cota-Gomez if they would both be interested in participating in the next training for the search advocacy training. It's going to happen like in October, and it's through Oregon State, and it's being part of our search advocacy training group. Right now, there's about 15 of us on the Anschutz campus that are trained on it, but we're looking for people from different departments that work in the diversity areas and the pipeline areas to be a part of this. And just what both of you said really fits within that mission of what we're hoping to accomplish in regards with not only just the recruitment, but also exposing populations at a younger age. And so we're really working with Chancellor Elliman, and he's really putting a lot of support behind this.
That's great. Yeah, that sounds terrific. Definitely interested in participating.
Yeah, send that information along home. Yeah, sounds great.
Well, good. We have had a productive panel because the panelists are making connections and finding out about additional resources. But yeah, I think that sounds like a fantastic program, Dominic. Go ahead.
I want to say one last thing. I'm not sure if we're going to have sort of a closing statements or anything like that, but you know, one of the big challenges we've had on this campus, and Dominic knows about this because kind of he and I have been trying to chip away at this problem, is all the siloing and all these programs kind of, I think, you know, Julie mentioned it, let's not reinvent wheels here, but all of us are always reinventing wheels because it's so difficult for us to coordinate. And I don't know why it has been so difficult for us to coordinate all our efforts. So when I want to have in one of the programs I create, if I want to have, you know, bias training or microaggression training, you know, it's not my first thought to, oh, let me go ask Dominic if his office already has a course in that. And you know, and so that's always been a challenge to me, that we don't work well together. We don't seem to know how to work well together. Not that we don't want to, and that we don't know how, that we don't have the resource. I don't even know where to go looking to see if somebody has already a course in that. And so what do is I develop my own course, right? And that's where now I'm reinventing the wheel where I'm going, okay, I'm doing something that already somebody else is doing on campus. Why didn't I just go and collaborate with them? So I want to offer that challenge to everyone who's on this call, and especially, you know, those of us in the panel, that we again try to keep working towards that unity with these initiatives, because I mean, we're essentially adding to the problem. If each of us is doing the same thing separately, you know, we're not being inclusive, we're not uniting, we're not, and so that's the opposite of what we're trying to be. So I mean, again, Dominic, I know you and I have been trying so hard for many years to do these kinds of things, and I'm not sure that we have made very much progress, but I think we all need to keep doing that. So just brainstorm on how to do it better, because I don't think we've been doing it well at all.
I think that's a great point. How can we just better connect and support each other?
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
And any other last final points anyone wants to say or make? All right, well, I think, you know, we'll just wrap things up here. And I, once again, just really appreciate you all for coming and sharing about your different roles and experiences. And yeah, I hope we can maybe keep this conversation going. I think this was a good, start to bringing people together. But yeah, how can we kind of continue doing that and, make work smarter, not harder, maybe to really, support each other in our different initiatives and together synergize to really promote that diversity and anti-racism that we hope to achieve.
Thank you, Allison, and thanks all of you. It was really great for me to be able to meet you. So thank you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, thank you all. And thank you, Allison, for all the great work you do.
Thank you. all we can do is try, right? And I think it's something we're all passionate about. So I'm grateful to have other passionate people that I can, have these conversations with and work with. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good
Bye,
day.
everyone.
We'll see you.
See you.